Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 3 of The Fall of the House of X, written by Jerry Duggan. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now this issue opens up with the sun beating down upon a weary Juggernaut while he was dragging Krakoa through the desert. Now it is said that nothing can stop the Juggernaut once he is in motion, but that is not entirely true. Especially when a harpoon made of the discarded adamantium skeletons of Weapon X finds itself through his leg. So with this grave injury, Juggernaut struggled to regain his footing much like the mutant race. Because the mutants had been losing since the Hellfire Gala, for many were dead, and most were scattered to the wind as a few small insurrection teams of X-Men led the rebellion against Orchis. For the battle to liberate Earth was underway, and it could have been going a little better. Now Krakoa, the living island, was surrounded by enemies and mutant kind was on the cusp of losing everything. In fact, the humans and Orchis were feeling so confident of victory that they were flying around in repurposed shield equipment. It was so bad that the meat puppets had no idea they were already sold out by the artificial intelligence within their organization. So as the soldiers rained down bullets from above, Juggernaut did everything he could to shield Krakoa from the onslaught. So as the bullets continued to pepper both him and the island, Juggernaut dug deep in order to defend his friend. Because once before Juggernaut had survived an attack that killed nearly all of his X-Men teammates, and because of that trauma, he's sworn to protect Krakoa until reinforcements arrived. Because to him, the options were either he succeeded or joined the rest of his teammates and death. Now, while all this was going on, at the exact same moment, halfway across the world, Cyclops was finally escaping the clutches of Orchis with the head of R&D Dr. Gregor. So as they made their run for it, Gregor doubled down on how they was planning on destroying Krakoa, but our boy Cyclops didn't seem to be concerned about it, for he trusted his fellow mutants to keep him protected. Because much like the mutants as a whole, the X-Men were there to protect everyone. So as they made their way down the stairs, Gregor asked Cyclops how the heck does he know where he is going, because she was under the impression that he was blind without his visor. And which he responds by saying he memorized the steps to his cell in case he needed it. But as they continued to travel, she still had questions. One of which was where the heck he was leading her, because these stairs lead to a dead end underneath the prison. Now, this was of no concern to Cyclops, because he already had a plan in mind and he told her she can follow him or take her chances against Omega Sentinel when she wakes up. So with that said, Gregor arrived at the conclusion that he could have freed himself at any time, and which Cyclops removed his visor and said yes, before releasing an optic blast, vaporizing 2 approaching guards. And the reason he gave to why he didn't leave was because he was waiting for her, because from his point of view, he and Dr. Gregor had almost everything in common. And because of that, Cyclops felt comfortable in asking her about who was really in charge of Orchis. Now, that is when Gregor responds by saying that she thought that herself as well as Dr. Devo was. So with them both seemingly at a dead end, Magic appeared before them with an extra visor in hand. Now on this page, Cyclops goes on to talk about how he was listening to the inner workings of Orchis for a long time. And while he was doing that, he noticed the human parts of Orchis came gloating whenever they had a chance, but the AI part stayed too quiet, which meant that for some reason, the AI didn't want to be noticed. So following that, Cyclops goes on to also say he is working with Dr. Gregor because they share some of the same concerns. So because of that, Cyclops asked Magic if they could save Krakoa without him, in which she responded with, if it needs doing then it will be done. So as Cyclops and Gregor set off on their hunt for the truth behind the AI, we jump over to Arakko. And when we get there, we see Apocalypse standing before the Arakko people giving a speech about how their cousins on Earth raised their banners against Orchis, and how it is their duty to join them in battle for the fate of mutant kind. And out of the entire crowd, the first person to walk up was Woofer, and according to him, he was made into an official X-Men member by Shadowcat in a previous issue. So with that said, Apocalypse shakes his hand and declares that he hears the words of a true mutant. But despite his willingness to help, Woofer had to admit that he was a little confused about 2 things. The first was how they were going to get to Earth, considering all the gates of Krakoa were currently closed. And the second was where in the heck was Storm? And to those questions, Apocalypse responds by saying there is still mutant magic left in this world. And as for Storm, she, like all storms, is difficult to predict. And with that statement, a loud boom erupts in the distance, and after the blinding light subsided, Manifold, Rogue, and Gambit stood in front of a sword station. And with a commanding voice, Manifold told both the mutants from Morocco and Krakoa that he is here to help provide transport to whoever wishes to help. So with that motivational speech, droves upon droves of mutants boarded the craft and prepared themselves for battle. Now Rogue knew some of these mutants were from Earth and had been waiting for this day. But nothing is easy, and if they want to go home, then they are gonna have to fight for it. So as the door closes, Manifold once again calls out to the universe and states that he has asked much of the universe already, and he must ask for much more, because there is great suffering and injustice on Earth and it must be set right. So he pleaded for the universe to take them home. And just like that, the Sword Station vanished, for the universe delivered, as the Sword Station appeared in orbit around Earth next to its twin. And as they set off to battle, Rogue yells for her army to take out any stray sentinels, factories, and prisons along the way. And as for their assigned teams, the telepaths will divide them into strike groups so they can divide and conquer their enemies. So with that going down, on the next page, we get to see the Sword Stations hovering over Juggernaut as he braces himself for reinforcements. And as for Shadowcat and Emma Frost, they receive a transmission from Tony Stark. Now on this transmission, we get to see Firestar saying, if they're seeing this recording, then that means she is probably dead. And Dr. Stasis realizes that she's been working with the X-Men all along. So to make sure he gets everything he deserves, Firestar managed to place a tracker on his person so the rest of her people could take him down. Which was exactly what Emma and Kate were planning on doing as they rerouted the Thunderbird. Now jumping over to the middle of nowhere, we found out that Dr. Stasis was confident that Orchis would win, but he had a backup plan in case they didn't. Because once on board his private plane, Dr. Stasis would cease to exist for a few years, and once the heat dies down, this aspect of Sinister would materialize into something worse. But before he could do so, Emma and Kate showed up on the scene and started to lay into him, beating him down. And once he got a moment to breathe, Dr. Stasis stated if they lay so much as another finger on him, they will never see Firestar alive again. Because once he found out she was working with the mutants, he hid her away as insurance against this exact scenario. And as for his mind, he had one of the finest psychic blockers implanted into his head. Or, at least, that was what he thought, for Shadowcat removed it during their brief exchange. So with the beans spilled, Emma, with no time to waste, extracted the information straight from his mind. And with the location acquired, Emma called for Sync to retrieve her. And just like that, he did, for he found her stored away on a fishing boat. So with Firestar safe, we jump back over to Emma, and let's just say, Stasis is in for the worst experience in his life, because Emma wasn't going to kill him fast. No, she was going to take her time and reach inside of his mind and pull forth his nightmares, his worst, most unhinged fears about mutants, and force him to live through all of it. And just to add icing on the cake, she wanted to ensure he felt all the pain that goes along with his nightmares. Now it only took a minute for Dr. Stasis's heart to begin to arrest. Because of course, time is relative and Emma Frost was a skilled telepath. In fact, she was so skilled that she made the final minute of his life feel like 10 years. And during this nightmare, he was killed in every manner possible. So as Stasis pleaded to be allowed to talk to Cyclops, Emma informs him that he is dealing with her. And if he even thinks about returning back to life by some other means like Sinister, then she will make sure his next death is far worse. And with that threat, Stasis is hit with a heart attack that kills him on the spot. So with Stasis out of the picture, Kate suggests that they give him the Dracula treatment to ensure he doesn't come back alive. But before Kate could do that, on the very next page, Firestar came flying into the hangar and incinerated his remains. So as the women stood over the body, Emma assured Firestar that she was proud of her and that she paid the hero's price. So with Stasis out of the picture, Emma tells her team that they need to get back to the Thunderbird and rejoin the fight. For there are crises on every corner of the globe and beyond. Now this brings us to space, with Magic dropping off Cyclops and Dr. Gregor at the Summers family old home. So as the two started to journey deeper into the Summers ex-residence, Magic was forced to leave to aid in the hunt for Dr. Devo in X-Men issue number 33. So with only Cyclops and Gregor remaining, he asks her, what exactly was Nimrod doing up in his former home while he was gone? In which Gregor responds by saying that he was mining for raw materials, but the only problem is, none of it was ever sent back to Earth. And nobody at Orchis seems to know why, not even Dr. Devo and herself suspected anything. But something tells her that Moira and Omega Sentinel were aware of the truth. So as Gregor opened the door, she and Cyclops came face to face with the mechanical menace himself, Nimrod. Now, during their interaction, Nimrod states that it is hard to surprise him, and somehow she managed to do it 3 times already, because he did not expect to see her again. So with that said, Gregor asked why he was keeping this secret, why he was keeping Sentinel City from her, and most importantly, what he was building with all the harvested material, in which Nimrod responds by saying the future and the end. So as Gregor approached Nimrod, Cyclops tried his best to remind her that this machine is not her husband. But her emotions overcame her as she tried to reason with the AI. So in order not to lie to his creator, Nimrod proceeded to snap her neck, killing her much sooner than he calculated. So with the doctor gone, Cyclops yelled out "Psycho" and let out a massive optic blast that forced Nimrod back. Now, while all this is going on, Nimrod is telling Scott that they calculated that they'll have the greatest chance of success if the mutants and humans were at each other's throats. Because if they were fighting, they would be too busy to look up and notice the sword over their heads. For Sentinel City is not an outpost or mining station, but instead, it is a tool to sanitize the hellish planet called Earth once and for all. And with that said, issue number 3 of The Fall of the House of X comes to an end. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.